thank you very much for joining. Thanks a lot, Manjunath, for joining today. And Aparna, I think, pretty much to see you people smiling, whether in office or at home, is one of the best thing I could see. After 3 waves of global, pandemic, I think as a society, as employees, as organizations, we have emerged very resilient. I must say this. I mean, there are various industries which have faced disruptions. Supply chain has faced disruptions. Families have faced disruption. I would say personal level impact has happened. And this has changed largely the ecosystem for us. So whatever the 3 waves and the pandemic and the endemic, we call it now, is happening with us, all of us has emerged very, very resilient. But this has also changed the way we used to think about living our life. And the bigger part of the life, which was our organizational part, has impacted heavily. Today, we have started calling it as a hybrid workplace. The word has more meaning today than actually it used to happen before December 2020, 2019 actually. Now, hybrid workplace is also shaping all pervasive environment. It's not only in one, probably a knowledge workers who could work remotely. I think it's no more a concern when you are looking at your employees today or you're looking at your organization today, when, where, how people are working. It's not a concern. Even when HR is going to hire a new employee, they're not going to ask this question, which location you are. This has many brighter sides. We can go to tier 2, tier 3 cities, hire talent there. We can optimize ourselves. People can be actually in the family as well, take care of, some old grandparents and parents there, and also be part of the organization and contribution to the organization. Things have very brightly changed for us. We can acquire talent from global perspective now and still doing. On the employee front also, we have seen great resignation words have been created, sort of it. But great resignation, I also say, is also great regeneration. Because first time, it's the employee who has got the power. It's not the organization which has got the power. Otherwise, it would be tilted other way around. Now, while this all is happening, industries are getting impacted. The way the industries work, and I'm sure, Manjunath, you are visiting the same, and Aparna, you are also visiting the same at your end. While, a one-liner introduction of yourself, this is my question to you guys. How are you thinking, and how are you thinking from your eyes perspective and your experience perspective? Industries are changing across. So, Manjunath, I'll start with you, and we'll go to Aparna then.
Thank you, Shalil. Thanks for the invite and bringing this right topic of discussion. Well, I am Manjunath. I head the IT for TVS Sons, the parent company here. Having said that, we are primarily into the automotive business, handling the dealership and service distribution across the country. So in this business, coming to your question, we were purely on a face-to-face working culture where we had to have the daily interaction with our people, with our customers, with our internal staff and all. That was the kind of culture. And automotive always being the human resource hungry field, we used to be always on the ground. This pandemic has brought in a huge change for us. One, from the cultural perspective, the change management perspective, and 3, from the adopting technology perspective. So whatever technology we could not, we were struggling to bring in from the last 10 years. Thank God it has helped us, this pandemic has helped us to bring in the last 2 to 3 years. So that's a big change if I take the positive side. But at the same time, as you rightly pointed out, there are some cons or effect also of that, because the human touch has gone out now, the emotion building, those things have taken a back seat now. But for the good of the organization, yes, the productivity has increased, the people interaction, there's no dependency of one meeting, Sablogit Raja, come here, sit for the meeting, those things have gone up. So wherever they are, they can start working, the productivity starts. But at the same time, on the cons effect side, the stress level, I'm sure it has built up on each and every employee, not only just for the employee, even to the family members of the employee. Earlier, the office room used to be the whole office setup. Today, your bedroom has become your office. The whole people who used to be in the bedroom will be in the hall and every other place. So the whole ecosystem has changed now. The way of thinking, the way of working, the way of living has brought in a huge change. So now coming back to the organization perspective, organization has definitely seen the benefit of this cultural shift. Though the organizations were not ready to accept this in a few years back, today the organizations have come forward and asked, "Hey guys, yes, this is the right model." And going forward, this is here to stay. This is not going to change, that will be purely 100% back to office or 100% purely remote. That's not going to be there. It'll be purely a hybrid culture, so that we get the flexibility, and based on the roles, we have to get adapted to that. And as you rightly brought out the point, the future technology, we do not know what else will bring in. Nobody has a footprint to say or blueprint to say, yes, this is my model for the next 3 years, 2 years. No, gone are those days. That's my viewpoint here.
Well, absolutely, Manjunath, and thank you very much for that. Actually, you are into an industry which was 100%, maybe more than 100% if possible, on a face-to-face basis, right?
Yes.
Physical environment was more important. Aparna, what's your views?
Yeah. So first up, again, thanks for inviting me. I lead the customer success function for Microsoft India. Pleasure to be here talking to you about this so pertinent topic that we're all learning together. So just to quickly respond to your question, I think obviously we've seen just massive changes at work in the past 2 years. If you think about it almost at a philosophical level, it's no longer about like when, where, and how, which is flexibility, but also why we work. I think people are also going through that fundamental question, and hence when we think about this whole kind of hybrid operating model, it also needs to be kind of unpacked to what it means to whom, right? So no two structures, for example, may be same. I think Manjunath gave some examples, but like we are even seeing in in our customer and partner base, where there are companies who are ranging from maintaining like permanent centralized offices. But there are others who are just saying we are completely doing away with offices. We just create, some co-work space options or meeting rooms where people can, just come and meet each other. So that physical kind of interaction is just very different now. Second, I think because of which now the employer to employee relationship is also going through that transformation. It's almost like, think about it like a new social contract that's emerging. And every organization is coming up with an approach to meet that need. Interestingly, I mean, just a few days back, Microsoft released this work trend index report, which both of you may have seen already. But a very interesting point that came was that 74% of Indian employees want more flexible remote work options, and at the same time, 73% are also craving for that in-person time with their leaders and colleagues. So what that really means in net is that the same individual is feeling both. It's clearly like a Venn diagram with a big overlap. And so the way each organization will need to solve this almost like a paradox is going to be that, you can't think binary, right? You can't say, okay, we will just do this and this is it. End of the day, flexibility and agility in how we learn and adapt and kind of create the new next mature operating model, I think will be the key. So that's, I think, just in terms of what's shifting. Now, clearly, technology is a foundational one which is helping drive that. I think Manjunath already called the example of, let's say organizations who are more prepared were able to respond, recover, to reimagine, as we even dealt through these last 2 years. So I think that's going to stay. And so I think at this point, every organization just recognizes that, that's going to be a big enabler. So as an example, again, building on Manju's point, which is that if you're talking about a manufacturing company, then for the ability to provide flexibility of a regular travel to remote sites, augmented maybe by video calls, 24/7 Power BI dashboards potentially for the leaders to track, just how the vitals of a factory are doing. Frontline workers maybe being equipped with technology for just better shift scheduling, their task management, reporting, the gig workers like you spoke about also earlier. I mean, all of this is for real and just developed at an accelerated pace. My last point is that I think just this entire reimagination of the hybrid workplace will require even newer categories of technology. And again, I think Manjunath alluded to that, to empower people. So yes, you spoke about metaverse earlier when we were chatting. What it will be and how it will all come together is something we will just see a very, very accelerated path in the coming months, I feel.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, both of you pointed out something which is, it is permanent. It's going to be staying there. we don't know yet what it means for all of us in different industries, but emerging from that is the desire and the intent of all the organization. Technology is the pivot, and that's the second point which we both agreed on. That I'm coming to Manjunath, a very important question actually. Imagine, we had a playbook, right? Employee playbook is always there. If you see an at home today, there is a room which says organization A, and there is a room which says organization B, and there is a room which says school A, and then there's a school B as well, right? I mean, just if you see your home as well, the relationship between the employee and the organization has changed, and as Aparna says, it's a social contract which is getting built up now. And as the emerging playbook as well, the old playbook is no more applicable to us.
True.
And therefore, the employee playbook has to change. I mean, how do they take leaves if they have to take leaves? How do they apply for it? When is basically saying the working hours for them actually? Okay. So there is a lot which is kind of changing. Do you think this is impacting heavily as organization policies, practices across the board?
Yes. Today the organizations are getting complicated. I mean, the HR especially is struggling to how do we put a policy framework around this structure now? Because the new structure, how do we frame the policies? How do we measure the productivity? How do we measure the timeline? Because there's a competition now that whether the family time versus the office time that has become. And many of the employee services rightly told by Aparna, the 70-75, 50% says here and 50% asks for this also. So balancing, having a right balance between both these different play books is completely a challenging one, where every organization, be it any verticals, the HR is going through a tough time to set up a policy framework for this. That is one. And second thing is coming to the employees also. His lifestyle and working culture has changed. The stress level has gone up in some cases. In some cases, it has become a convenient time to work at his own flexible timing. That is also here. So it has given him both the flexibilities, both the stress level as well as the flexibility level. So how do we balance it out? How do we ensure that it is overcome and becomes a standard? Because there's no such standard as of today. Everything has been disrupted. So how do we make this as a standard so that the incumbent employees or the next future generation gets adapted to this and start moving on with it? Because the new generation employee is very sure when coming itself, he says, I purely need remote working. I need purely flexible working. Whereas the older generation and our generation says, no, we are used to that office working, but still we need to have some flexibility. So there's a different thinking hats that is coming in together. So how do we build it up? We are all into the learning curve and we are all into the learning phase. We have to go through some more time, and maybe we might be coming up with something more concrete in the next 6 to 12 months.
Absolutely, Manjunath. I think, fair to say what you highlighted is the three things. One, model flexibility at all levels. I think, which was not earlier thought about. Every policy framework, every practice, every norm which was built in the organization was horizontal in nature. Whether, I am an X worker or a Y worker, a style of working is different, my timing is different. I may be awake late in the night to work versus sleeping in the afternoon. Things have changed now. So one is model flexibility at all levels, what you highlight. Second, you highlighted the rebuild the employee experience. I think, how do I give you an experience to an employee from joining to exit is the journey an employee is looking at it. And I think both joining to exit have been on a digital. Now we have seen it, right? We have seen thousands of employees joining an organization on a digital platform, and suddenly they will also leave it also on a digital platform. So that journey has to be redefined into an experience perspective. And really, to an extent, I would call it employee will always learn and remember experiences. Nothing will matter for an employee other than the experiences. And third is, there is a prioritized social capital and culture, right? I think that's where we have to rethink again. What's my social practice and my social culture, coming? How's this capital is being utilized, built, and so and so. I think thousands of employees moved remotely. Thousands of employees are now coming back to office as well. Both the journeys have to be taken care at the same time. Question to you, Aparna, is very important, which is coming, right? One, leadership is another key aspect. Leaders and managers have to play a vital role. Our playbook has changed as leaders. ourselves. They have to drive flexibility with the employees to ensure they remain engaged and enable with the hybrid work model. Now, how are you scripting the journey from a collaboration to convergence? It's very important because it's just not, collaborating on an audio and video, right? I mean, it is no more a meeting which used to happen earlier. This is every desk needs to be now digitally and physically present. There are things which will be approved. I mean, there is a process. Procurement needs an approval. How do I do it digitally? Because people may be available very differently. Now, collaboration to conversion is a journey. What are the few principles you think organizations should adopt today?
So first up, I think just to connect with some of the callouts both of you had, I think one, we are hearing a little more about the intent at the leadership level to bring people back. Right.
Yes.
But on the ground, like I shared the paradox. I mean, even last year we had a very similar, just the paradox that we were seeing, and again, that's being reinforced in this more recent report. So the challenge almost is then that for the managers to make it happen, right, to enable the employees or to lead employees in this kind of an environment, and sometimes they themselves can feel like sandwiched between what the senior management wants and what the employee wants, and then now how do I lead, right? So I think it's very important first and foremost to recognize and acknowledge that, right? That it's a tough, but yes, we are also going to be in it together. That this is going to be a journey that the managers will take along with the employees and along with the other leaders together. So to answer your question, I think there are at least a few things we all can kind of lean on. I think the first would be just to focus on the fundamentals, right? And I'll go back to my comment earlier on why we work, right? To say that what motivates each of your team to wake up in the morning and come and work, right? It doesn't matter where, right? So sure. The love of the work, are you creating a supportive team culture? Are you enabling access to that whole collaborative framework that you spoke about in a seamless way? So if I come and work, plug and play in a common co-working space, it works equally well. If I use it on my phone, it works equally well. If I'm at home, it works equally. So are we creating that kind of a seamless framework or a platform experience that just makes it easy for the customers in our case? And I'll give you some examples that a lot of the work we are doing at the moment on Teams as a platform. Teams was otherwise it started for some of the customers to think about it as a place we do meetings, then became a huge a collaboration shift, got accelerated during COVID. But now if you see a lot of the work we are doing with our customers is to some of the points you made earlier, that can I book my seat when I'm coming to the office from inside that, right? Can I create, or can I as a manager approve maybe somebody's travel or somebody's whatever expense just in that same frame, right? Can I go and check in my code? If I'm an engineer, can I go and check in my code from inside of Teams? So we're trying to create and really see that shift in terms of how do you create that common converged fabric and focus on the fundamentals. On top of it is maybe the kind of things that a lot of the HR teams have invested in to say, can we have happy hours? How do you send kudos or praise to your employees? What is the notion of a virtual offsite? But we do have to recognize that tends to be another meeting. So you can't have a water cooler conversation without blocking in somebody's calendar as long as we are going to be hybrid. So each of us, I think, has to go through, focus on the fundamentals, and then create all these, fun interaction points really during an employee's journey. The second one that you spoke about on just new employees, like there have been employees who have joined during this period, there are employees who have changed roles during this period, there are some employees who have even left during this period, right? So how is a manager supporting the onboarding process, right, for the employee? And maybe many organizations have a notion of a buddy or just having in-person connects that used to happen in the past. So now are the managers actually spending a very different kind of an engagement model to just get them onboarded into and integrate them into this new fabric, let's say, that every organization is creating. The last one, I think, which can go a long way is really empowering the managers and equipping them with insights. So just having an underlying system where they can see, data points like, again, workplace analytics, what percentage of collaboration is happening? Are there, some teams which are collaborating better than others? Are you seeing a consistent, over work hours for a certain, set of people? So there are a lot of these insights that also can be very good signals for managers in their ability to lead or take timely intervention or reach out for help, whether it is from HR or anyone else. I think, those are at least the three. So just to wrap it up, I think I would say, like, just focus on the fundamentals, ensure, that there is good support for onboarding in this hybrid environment. And the third, that if you can empower managers with insights that, enable them to do their job better.
Absolutely, Aparna. I think very well articulated, I must say. In a statement, I would call it is that we have to do more than a professional relationship. We need to know the employee more personally as well. Because in the hybrid work environment, the stress levels cannot be assessed. Emotional quotient cannot be assessed. I think there has to be a balance between culture and technology, which will has to come together. Technology has matured, but organization hasn't. I think that's the pace I would look at it. Microsoft have been doing a great innovations across the board. I can see that. Now moving forward in metaverse, it would be like wearing a glass and you're in office and you put the glass off and you're not in the office. But that I'm yet to see. I'm sure it's accelerating. It's coming on our way. My last question to both of you guys is very important. Some point of time, both of you have reflected that we don't know yet what is going to happen. It's just we're emerging out of it. We are doing some experiments, some trials. What's the blueprint look like? I think that hasn't come out. Optimized blueprint for an organization. Just very briefly, time is already a constraint for both of us, let's say this way. But very briefly, couple of principles on which you would say an organization, as listening to you guys, can base their blueprint, let's say. So Manjunath, I'm going to start with you, and Aparna, I'm going to with you.
Well, though the blueprint, as you rightly said, the blueprint is not ready for more time, but the immediate focus is what is that you need to achieve, the goal of the organization, where do we want to go ahead. That is the key thing, to keep that in mind, so that and build processes and the culture in and around that to achieve that goal. That will be the key point where the blueprint will start working. And the point number 2 would be the hybrid is going to stay, because both the in-office, be it off-office line, the hybrid world is going to stay. So how do we put the policy and framework so that the customer, the employee experience, because we are purely customer-oriented industry, so how do we ensure the customers also comes into the forefront? It's not just the employee or the organization. We have to keep the customer experience also in mind. So how do we achieve that customer experience is sustained in our type of industry? That would be the another area of focus, which keeping these three things, how can we build our solutions, our practices, our cultures, our working styles, all this will roll around these 3-4 areas to take it forward. This is what the blueprint which I can see for now. We don't know how things, and definitely technology is the enabler of all these things, because earlier technology was meant only for the IT solutions, but today technology is creeping into all areas, be it from the onboarding to offboarding level, be it from the processing level to the working level, even for the change management of the culture management, also technology is creeping. The kind of insight they are getting from the technology solutions, it is creeping everywhere. That's the key areas what I think.
Absolutely. Aparna, over to you.
Yeah. So we are, I think, in a transient mode, and it's almost humbling in some ways. And it's like, yes, we don't know, and we are going to figure this out. I think that's really the acknowledgement and the call out I would have. So yes, there's no perfect blueprint. Also, no two organizations are the same. And so, their solves or how they figure it out will also look, slightly different. It's almost like we are all going to learn, and there is this massive at-scale workplace experiment that we are going to go through for the next few quarters. I think that's really how I see it. But having said that, yes, if we want to think about some of the baseline assets of what the framework should look like, I think and one horizontal I would say is that how do we make it an inclusive environment for our employees, no matter where they are, who they are, where, and how they are working, including their timing, right? So I think, and hence the first maybe pillar of that framework would be people. Right? That every organization needs to plan and have policies updated. And again, I think Manjunath, you called that out earlier, right? The policies will have to shift. The flexibility will have to be, a normal. So how are we enabling that? How are we creating a digital empathy for every single employee? For a global organization like ours, timing of meetings, how do we create it to make it more inclusive? Whether it's turning on cameras, if somebody cannot, what does that mean? And I can share like one recent example now that we are back in office. Like if you're in a meeting where you're in a room and talking to people, there's a natural tendency to look at those people and talk. But if there is even one person on camera, and this is just something we learned even as a leadership team at Microsoft India, which is that if even one person is there, let's all still log into Teams, let's still turn on our cameras from where we are sitting. And so that we at least have the option to look in front, to the camera and look at the people in the room. So I think let's all be very nimble in just learning and making it real around people. The second, I think, is places. And place, again, I think we talked about work from anywhere. So how do you create that seamless ability to collaborate, connect, just build social capital, just based, no matter whether the person is on site or remote or was yesterday on site but is remote today, and so on. So I think this whole place, and then what can you equip the place with to make it easier and more seamless. The last, I think, is processes, right? So it's people, place, process, really. I mean, fairly, the fundamental ones that, tend to use anyway, right? And in terms of process, maybe it's more of how do you use it as an opportunity to transform some key business processes, right? So, and this is again something we are seeing a lot of organizations doing, whether it is readiness to cloud, right? Whether it is digitization of a lot of their business processes, right? Just moving to, how they look at their ERP or how the ERP connects to their CRM and so on. So there's just so much more digitization and connection that is happening as we speak. And all of that, but with a very, again, nuanced but important kind of thing that every organization will need to keep in mind, which is security, right? That you, with everything that, and the pace at which every organization is trying to digitize and transform themselves, are we taking care of security? Because end of the day, in this hybrid model, there's just so much, like I can work from a personal laptop, I can work from a phone, I can work from a laptop, my spouse might be sitting behind, potentially listening to the customer names. There's just so much sensitive information in this new model. So how do we make it the most secure way to be successful is maybe, the last one that I would kind of close with on the process bit of it.
Yeah. Absolutely, Aparna. And I think the last one is the best one, I would call it. I think one of the areas is the issue about security. And I think most of the organizations have realized in the hybrid work environment, that's the one important fundamental foundation need to put across the board. In the last, I'm going to leave just one message to you guys. I think whole thing has to pivot around technology, but make technology as invisible as possible. Yes. Don't pat yourself if technology is visible. Yeah. Pat yourself if technology is completely invisible, guys. That's what I'll leave it with you. Thank you very much for the time, gentlemen, as well as lady. Your presence, your time, honored, in fact, and pleasure.
Thank you, Shalil. Thank you,
Aparna. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah.